That shot is incredible. You can't do fire like that as visual effects back then. There was not the technology for it.
What? What's it going to take?
Whoa!
Wow.
Hold the phone.
The
Hold
kid
up.
was 100% CG.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Visual Effects Artists React. We're still practicing social distancing, and I also just realized I can utilize the entire length of this couch.
We got some dragons and fire. We got some old school VFX.
I've got my smiles and my frowns and my raised eyebrows.
I got a new one. Check this one out.
Okay, so Reign of Fire. I haven't seen this movie in forever, but I remember loving it.
What a cool movie. It's the dragon apocalypse.
They dig deep enough and they find a bunch of dragons, and the dragons take over the world.
Everything you want to see in a movie, this movie has it. Brutal post-apocalyptic soldiers, dragons.
We're about to see the shot that's so good, it's stuck with me for life.
Dude, look at that fire. Look at how that fire is not interacting with the wind from the dragon at all.
Oh, shush.
now, Wren.
Come on.
Come now, Wren.
That shot is incredible. You can't do fire like that as visual effects back then. There was not the technology for it. And like the lighting on the dragon was super good. Dude, watch all the people get engulfed by the flame at the bottom. How do you guys think they did this convoy shot?
So it definitely looks like that fire is actually there for real. But like you're getting proper occlusion of the foreground elements as they get engulfed by fire. Like there's a really good depth mat going on with CG fire, but this is obviously real.
Looking at the scale of the fire, I would say that's miniatures.
I think you're right.
So are we talking about like a robot-controlled flamethrower?
I think they probably just flamed this shot for real, and they just replaced whatever's holding the flamethrower with the dragon. Like the dragon's coming at the end of this whole process.
So you're talking about a man in green pajamas.
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
I got some research. So first and foremost, the fire is real. But they actually have a caterpillar, not the bug, but like one of the things that scoops, like a backhoe. On the end of it is a giant propane flamethrower.
Okay.
And it shoots liquid propane. So they're just taking that, they're going, boom, and just, lighting up that set.
That means that the scale has to be at the scale of a frickin' tractor.
Like a 1:2 scale kind of situation. You can freeze frame this shot, and if you line up what an excavator looks like and about how high it can raise its front arm, you would probably imagine then that this couch is probably how big those cars are in the shot. And that's why like the fire looks so good, is because they're matching the scale of the shot really, really well. Obviously doing it 1-to-1 would be like, do they even make flamethrowers this big?
Oh yeah, they did a bunch of 1-to-1 shots. They went through 8 tons of liquid propane in this movie.
8 tons.
So, I mean, imagine you write out your movie budget and you submit it and you're like, we're gonna need funds for about 8 tons of liquid propane. And then the executives are like, this is gonna be a good movie.
I distinctly remember this movie having some really cool animation on the dragons too. Like, oh man, this dragon means business. And this came before the dragons in Harry Potter, but they specifically inspired the dragons from Harry Potter.
There's actually some really cool things that came into play when they were trying to create the dragon. So they first started with like a Komodo dragon, the real thing, like a lizard-style dragon. They're like, it just doesn't look mean enough. And what they did is they went back and remodeled it so like the body kind of hung below the wings, like a wasp.
Oh.
And they also put all the holes in the wings so you can like see those tatters and those tears and see the spikes, because that all makes it look more mean and rugged. It's all about that silhouette. And once again, like these CG dragons look really good because they're almost always in silhouette or lit with like very specific directional scene lighting.
Wait, what?
That's the Jurassic Park reference horn. I'm referencing the Jurassic Park T-Rex because they were smart and they lit the scene in a way that didn't require them to use really fancy, physically based rendering.
That Jurassic Park horn, I'm glad we honked it, because there's a couple shots here that I think are really good examples of it. But this is a really good example. Having objects that can occlude it, we have all the atmosphere in the scene as well.
Dude, that shot through the grate there so it's obscured.
That's nuts.
Really cool.
Yeah, a simple technique to really make the dragons feel larger is simply have it break frames. That was something they did all the time for Game of Thrones. You can never really see the entirety of a dragon. The wings were usually clipping the tops or sides of the framing, and that just kind of gives a sense of like, wow, this is so big, the camera can't even capture it all. Like, this was like the first time we saw legit dragons in movies. I mean, we obviously had Dragonheart before that, but that wasn't like a badass dragon. These are badass dragons.
I want to watch this movie again.
I do too. Please leave a comment suggesting some other visual effects that we should look at. There's nothing else for us to react to, and we need your help.
What time is it? Game time!
Are either of you guys basketball fans and have been watching the new Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary? Halfway through every episode, they have like commercials that are really funny because they're like, we're a mid-90s news broadcast, but we're talking about the future.
This is the kind of stuff that ESPN will eventually make a documentary about. They'll call it something like The Last Dance. It's gonna be lit. You don't even know what that means yet.
I didn't notice any visual effects were being done until the final commercial.
That's another documentary for another day.
You're starting to sound like Kenny Mayne.
And this is starting to sound like a State Farm commercial.
But I was watching and I was like, what's wrong with his lips? What is going on here? This is an effect I didn't anticipate. What I initially thought was them setting up old cameras and trying to mimic the old broadcast style. No, these were actually originally broadcast back in the 90s. Those are real sports news anchors, but they're making them say other things. So when I looked into it, the articles that have already been written about this, they say they did it with deep fakes. The problem is that no one really knows what that means. Niko,
I know what that means.
You know what it means.
Just doing VFX in somebody's face isn't a deep fake. Replacing the mouth isn't a deep fake. A deep fake is when that computer can basically repaint a face by hand using its knowledge of, what thousands and thousands of pictures of that face looks like. So the whole face is an AI reconstruction. It uses deep learning. That's why it's called a deep fake. Like just manipulating or remorphing or retargeting a face, that's not a deep fake. I don't think there's any machine learning involved in these shots. I think they are filming a mouth, and they are trying to match up the cadence and the rhythm of the words to the chin movements of the news anchor, and they're just replacing his mouth with new lips. So you watch closely, sometimes the lips slide up and down in the face, and the cheeks here don't react. There's nothing happening in the cheeks that match the lips. And you can kind of see almost like a soft feathered mask around the lips, and they kind of float there in that face, in that soft feathered mask. But the part where she smiles, where she turns and looks at the other news anchor at the end and smiles, that's going from the composited footage to the real footage when she turns her head there. And it stays real through the rest of that moment. Here comes so that's fake, and then boom, that's real.
Okay. Yeah, also kind of notice how the dude's lips and like immediately around his lips are very clear. The clarity is high, and it doesn't match the graininess of the rest of his head.
And they could have deep faked the entire face, then just cut out the mouth and stuck the mouth back on too. That is a possibility.
I mean, that was what I initially thought, specifically because they were saying they did a deep fake. So I was going in under the assumption that they actually did do some sort of deep fake. You are the deep fake expert here, and you're saying it's not a deep fake.
The reason I don't think they did a deep fake and then cut out the lips and stuck the lips back in is because of the teeth. The teeth look pretty good. In fact, they look very clear. And yeah, you can have clear teeth in a deep fake, but it's just something about the clarity and the way the lips move across them. It doesn't look like a deep fake to me.
Remember when you gave Tupac a center tooth?
Yeah.
And called him Toothpac? So now we are looking at Terminator Dark Fate, and it's the newest Terminator movie. There's some crazy effects throughout this whole thing. In fact, there's almost too many effects to talk about, so we're just gonna look at the two main Terminators that are in this scene here.
Ahí está.
That's cool. What the shit?
The reason why I love that shot right there is because they had the gun there the whole time, but the bag was fake. Your brain doesn't have a chance to realize the bag isn't real before it starts getting all amorphous and obviously fake. But that feels like a shot that was designed by a visual effects artist, as opposed to a director without any experience with visual effects.
That guy forgot to take his green screen suit off in the background.
Oh.
Wait.
They're gonna give him Terminator arms later.
Okay. Yeah. Dude, for a moment there, I thought that was legit a mistake.
Look at those beautiful hits. God, the CG in this movie is nuts. I really like Tim Miller's work just because his understanding of spectacle and visuals is so on point after doing all those videos with Blur Studios.
That's right, yeah, Tim Miller, he pioneered that crazy cinematic look that video games back in the day had, and he turned into an actual movie director. He directed Deadpool. They had a tiny budget, but his knowledge of visual effects was so deep that they were able to stretch all of that budget out and make a full-length Deadpool movie with tons of effects everywhere.
They're very, very ballsy with their digital doubles in this now. They're just straight up, there's one right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of digital doubles going on here.
Sometimes they look great, and sometimes it comes down to that physics thing where you need them to move in a way that things don't quite move, and it stands out a little bit. But like that, like with the leg break there looks great. Like from a rendering point of view, the lighting's perfect. The cloth looks great, but like in the part when he jumps up to like the scaffolding, like he jumps a little fast and a little weird where things can't quite accelerate like that.
It looks weird because we are not used to seeing real superpowers. How do you move that fast? And it kind of looks wrong, but it's because we've never seen anyone jump 30 feet like that before.
Yeah, I think a good example is like the Boston Dynamics demos when you see the mechanics required to operate a body of a certain weight. You see the impact and strength that's required. And if a guy was like hopping around on these beams, a giant robot, he's probably gonna be knocking it over, bending and breaking this stuff as he's connecting with it.
Yeah,
So.
that's obviously a ton of work. And also, I don't think people really care. You know, if you sat down and you're like, all right, we're gonna make the physics perfect, I don't think the audiences would really care. They're watching robots fight. Like, the point I'm trying to make is it's always been the case in movies that physics get violated.
Okay, sure.
Oh man.
Yeah, this is what I want to see here.
I was just like, oh god.
I love the ferrofluid effect.
Look at that,
When he
crazy.
stands up, yeah.
See that kick there where she went into that cabinet? Like, that looked good in my opinion. That had the right kind of speed and momentum.
The head bonks, oh, that is brutal.
So this is the thing where they actually did several different takes, one with the real actor. Like when she's like slamming the thing into his head, she's actually hitting a pad that's on the ground. So she's able to give all of her force into the actual motion of it. And then they filmed a separate plate with her not in it, of him just kind of reacting. And then they add all the visual effects with the digi-double and then composited it all together. I feel like they do a pretty good job of like selling the kind of power someone with an incredible amount of strength has when fighting another person with an incredible amount of strength.
That future never happened because I stopped it.
I don't even think it's de-aging, man. It's just, I'm watching this and I'm just like, this is unreal. Like, look at that.
Whoa.
We're looking at Sarah Connor as she was in Terminator 2. We're looking at John Connor as he was in Terminator 2.
They even got like the perfect like 90s sunglasses for Arnold.
It's by far the hardest work we've done on
Wow.
humans.
Whoa!
Wow.
Hold the phone.
The
Hold
kid
up.
was 100% CG.
Okay, there is a real person there.
With the headband.
They did the full body track and a clothing track for some reason.
I think they were just like, we want the option to do full CG in case something goes crazy.
Yeah, so his hair is CG there. You know, it seems like an easy thing. Oh, keep the hair for real and then just replace the face. But how like the hair is leaving a shadow on the face, how it interacts with the face, sometimes it's easier just to make the hair CG as well.
I'll say it's nice watching a VFX shot like this that just works.
That completely surpasses the Uncanny Valley for me.
Yeah, this is perfect.
It's on the other
Like
side.
nothing about that is triggering my evolutionary senses of like, that's not a human. Also, I love the casting of the Arnold body double because he looks exactly like Arnold.
Hold on, we just found our next piece of merchandise. Frickin' chin strap, skull cap, motion tracking corridor hats. If you want to get the latest in streetwear, you should wear one of those.
My strength alone can't do it.
All right,
Is there anything you can do to help?
last clip, guys. It's one shot. It's one shot from the old
Do not
Hercules
miss
movie,
your chance.
starring Lou Ferrigno.
Those pecs could gouge your eyes out.
But I don't know what this effect is yet. I don't even know what you're trying to show us here.
The optical
Classic
printing
little
effects right
optical
there.
light effects.
Yeah. Here we go.
Do that rainbow square.
He's growing big. Using magic to make him giant.
Yeah.
No green screens here. He's just growing giant.
Wait.
I know it. I know what's going on. I know what's
think I
going
do
on.
too.
I know what's
do
going
too.
on. I got it. The camera's just moving closer.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing. That's how it would actually physically work if you were to suddenly get large. You're now looking up at the thing, which is the same exact perspective shift as pushing the camera into that person.
So it's pretty obvious how they did this. The camera's just moving closer to him on the beach, so it looks like he's getting bigger.
But it's a separate shot.
Well, the foreground there is probably just a single picture that's been stuck over the frame. And you can tell because she's not moving at all, the woman casting the spell, and they cover that up with a magic square rainbow. So you can't tell she's moving, and that helps sell the scale. And then beyond that little still frame in the foreground is just a camera pushing in towards Hercules as it gets bigger. The number of people watching this video right now that are not subscribed are literally half.
What? Every week we say subscribe. No one subscribes. Every week we politely ask subscribe. We know how many of you are not subscribed. We know these things, and yet you continue to ignore us. What's the point? I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. You know, don't subscribe. Fine. Delete the YouTube app off your phone. Don't ever watch this video. I'm just, you're free to do as you please. Just go on, live your life. Be free.
Are those CGI tears?
I don't know. Just go. I don't know. Just if you're not going to subscribe, just do whatever you're going to do. Get it over with. They're not subscribing. What's it going to take? What's it going to take? How many bells are you going to have to ring? This is it. This is the last time I ever ask you to say subscribe. Unless this changes, this might be it.
Okay, Sam?
This is the last subscribing push I'm going to do until things change. And I'm not the one who has to change, it's you.